When you compare deaf culture from when you were growing up to how it is today, what's your experience? Is it the same or different?
Okay. Well, I think hearing people understand more about deaf people and their needs. The schools provide ASL, signing. There's more support in the community than there used to be. That's an improvement. I feel like I was almost born too early. If I were to have to go through school again, I'd go to the same schools, but I'd have support services, interpreters, note takers. I think deaf people are more open. They're more proud of their deafness than they used to be. I remember seeing deaf people in the community. This was before I learned sign language. If a hearing person was watching them sign, they'd drop their hands and then raise them again when they thought someone wasn't looking. It's almost as if they were ashamed of themselves. These days, though, it's much more acceptable with exposure on TV, movies, and all that kind of thing. That's helped a great deal.
There have been a lot of changes. We can't expect that deaf people are going to stay the same. There are some positives and some negatives. One really good thing is that job opportunities have really increased. We see deaf lawyers and dentists, and I even know of one vet. A whole variety of jobs, but in the past, of course, the only jobs that deaf people could have were printing jobs or manual labor. Now we have deaf professionals, counselors and teachers. Well, we did have deaf teachers in the past, but we have counselors and psychologists and more professional opportunities. In the past, deaf people tended to get together and congregated together. It's kind of like the diaspora of the Israelites when they dispersed from Israel throughout the world, and that's happened similarly to deaf people. And I think in the past, what kept us together was that we had limited interests. And nowadays, our interests are more varied. We have more opportunities, and so we can find smaller groups to get together with. I also think technology has made some changes with email and closed caption movies. People used to get together in the Deaf Club and watch captioned movies, but now people can do that in their own homes. And it's a bit sad because you see that the deaf clubs no longer exist. They folded. I can remember going to the Deaf Club when I was little, and it was a really cherished experience. I feel like the kids nowadays are missing something. But you know, since I've been here, I've noticed that we're kind of moving back to the old times of getting back together again as a community. We went from only being a part of the deaf community to dispersing as individuals, and now back again to being part of a community. Well, just recently I went to something called Deaf Fest, where there were deaf folks together and hearing people who knew some sign language. We got the opportunity to share stories and jokes, even watch some performers on stage. And that felt like we were going back to the old time of the deaf clubs. Perhaps the pendulum is swinging back, and maybe people are recognizing that they miss that face-to-face contact, that sense of community. Now, whether we'll get back to having deaf clubs again, I'm not sure.
Is it your opinion that deaf culture and hearing culture are different or the same? Explain your answer, please.
Well, I'm a deaf woman, and I grew up feeling normal because we signed at home. My mom signed. Went to the school for the deaf where everyone signed. And I didn't really think of myself as a deaf person until I went into the hearing world, when I started working with state government. And then I recognized that I wasn't the same as my hearing co-workers. My whole life I had been in communities where everybody signed, whether it was at the deaf school or whether it was at home. Everyone signed and communicated with me and understood me. But it was once I started working in the hearing world that I recognized I needed interpreters for meetings occasionally. I needed to teach people some sign language. Even when I went to college, I was at Gallaudet University, and the entire community there knew sign language and deaf culture. Security guards, cafeteria workers, people in the bookstore, that was my world. Everyone spoke my language. But once I was working in the Justice Department, it really hit me that here I was, a deaf individual. And I survived that for 9.5 years. And how I did that was by educating my fellow co-workers. And I noticed that I really needed to educate them so they'd understand who I was and where I was coming from. And that made me equal with them. I teach them some sign language, tell them a bit about deaf culture. And it would open up communication. From time to time, I would teach them some finger spelling. We also would resort to paper and pen if we needed to. But I'll tell you, I always felt separate and apart from them. We had short-term collegial relationships, but I'll tell you, we never developed really deep friendships.
Okay, what are the differences between the hearing and deaf cultures? I think for the deaf, eye contact is important. To look away is considered rude. In the hearing culture, that constant eye contact would be rude. You need to break the eye contact. That's something I've noticed. When I'm with hearing people and maintaining the eye contact, they'll feel uncomfortable. So I need to do it differently depending on who I'm talking to. Let's see, another difference. Touch. Touch is different. Hearing people feel like it's rude to be touched, whereas deaf people touch each other all the time to get attention, slap somebody on the back is normal. Another difference is deaf people tend to have a long goodbye. When it comes time to leave, you'll give the person a hug, and then you might hug a couple of more times, and that goodbye gets drawn out. Whereas hearing people don't do that. There's kind of less affection shown there.